Oh hey, would you look at this? The Lakers at this point in the season have played a handful of games, of which LeBron has played about 6 of them, and while I can't say the Lakers have necessarily looked all that good, LeBron James most certainly has. LeBron has averaged 25, 6, and 7 on 56% true shooting, which is roughly in line with his career averages. What do you know, the guy isn't washed, and he's still quite good. Who could have guessed this? Rudy, can you edit like a red arrow pointing to me? Because I guessed this. That's the joke, is that I guessed this, made a whole video on it, and I was right. Okay, seriously, I'm far from the only one who has pointed out that the constant declaring of LeBron to be washed has been foolish and downright wrong. But yet, the trend of doing so continues to happen. It continues to persist. So with that said, let's talk about the narrative of LeBron being washed that has been levied on him the past couple of years, and why it's fucking stupid. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall in that 50%, then please subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. Only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. I am trying to hit 200k subscribers on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. But on with the video. Now, before anyone jumps on me for basing this video on a 6-game sample size, well, the first thing, I'm just trying to say that he looks good. He looks like a top player in the league, a top 3, 5 player in the league or whatever, which has been my whole point, is that he's still in that category regardless. And he has played like that, he has looked like that, and I think you'd be hating to say that this looks like a fluke with him. But then also second, you guys were arguing that he was washed based on a 6-game sample size in a playoff series versus the Phoenix Suns, where he was injured and he was lacking in health because of other injuries. So fuck you, fair game. Looking at his numbers real quick, I did say a few times talking about the Lakers going into this year that LeBron would shoot the most threes per game of his career playing with Russ. And while he's averaging 8 attempts per game, and his 3-point attempt rate is currently 15.6% higher than his previous career high. I said he'd do this to give himself less of a strain offensively. Taking jump shots is a lot easier than driving and taking contact constantly. He can flip that switch when he needs to. He did that versus the Houston Rockets, but for the most part, he's going to be chill and just taking jump shots to preserve his body as he gets older. And I also said he'd do this so that he could make Russell Westbrook's life easier and his transition would be better and Russell Westbrook would fit right in with the Lakers. Thus far, one of those two things have been true, and I'm going to brag about it because a 50% success rate is about as good as it gets with me. But the overall point is that LeBron James, even though it is a limited sample size, has clearly shown that he is still one of the best players in the league and still in the conversation for being the best player in the league. I don't think these handful of games have put him at that level, but I think he's shown that he can be there for sure with these games. He's just not really going all out right now, as LeBron is one to do, which we'll talk about a bit later. But what do you know, this is not the first time I've had to say something like this, defending LeBron to actually not be washed and then he isn't. I've done this a few times now. Back in 2018, with LeBron's first year in LA, these things started being said as he and the Lakers missed the playoffs. Now, these people were ignoring the context of the team being the 4th seed when LeBron was healthy, but hey, why would someone who just blindly hates on a player bother with context? That's not really their forte. And it's counterintuitive to their points. Then, the next year, once again, what do you know? LeBron wins a championship once the team adds Anthony Davis to the roster. And in the NBA Finals, he averaged 30 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists on 67% true shooting, and he won Finals MVP. Wow, that's pretty fucking washed if you ask me. Like, come on, man. He literally did this already, and you're doing it again. But let's continue, because this ain't it. Then this year, again applying context, the Lakers dealt with injuries all year after the shortest offseason in NBA history. In spite of this, LeBron was an MVP candidate, and arguably at the top of the race when he was actually healthy and playing. Just by the way. And then the Lakers fell apart in the first round after everyone rushed to come back, and the conference champions, who were healthy all year outside of some Chris Paul stuff in the first 4 games of the series, were healthy throughout the entire series, had a full year to build their chemistry. Meanwhile, the Lakers had multiple new pieces that had not really played together for an extended period of time throughout the entire season. Everything naturally fell apart because of that. Meanwhile, the Suns were a perfectly well-oiled machine. We're giving the Lakers and LeBron a ton of slander for losing that series. find that pretty fucking ridiculous. I realize they're the defending champions, but the context makes it look a whole lot better than just saying that blanketly. Now, LeBron was not without blame for factors in how that series went, especially some of his body language in Game 6 that was just awful. He absolutely looked like he just gave up and did not give a shit, and I was very critical of him for that. But some people jumped to he's washed when he did that. It's far from enough evidence to dismiss the guy entirely as washed. It's one game and it's 6 games, and 6 games with a horrible scenario, recovering from an ankle injury after not having played a lot of basketball recently. But here we are again. And it appears that LeBron is still pretty fucking good. It appears that LeBron is still one of the best players in the league. It appears that LeBron is still in the conversation for the best player in the league. As for the Lakers, we'll wait and see, because the rest of that ship does not look particularly pretty, but it's not LeBron's fault, that's for damn sure. But no, when I made the LeBron case for best in the NBA video, like a quarter of the comments were like, nah, Rusty, you just don't want to see it, man. He's clearly regressed a lot. Well, no, I was just failing to fall into this cycle of LeBron James that has not only existed in the last couple of years of trying to call him washed, but also existed in his career previous to this for conversations as to whether or not he lost the title of the best player in the league. LeBron, throughout his entire career, has always had these dips, and he's always recovered from them. Now, I'm not saying he's going to do that 100% of the time. One day, LeBron is going to have a dip and it's going to last forever. That's just the natural aspect of aging. You can expect that. Father Time always wins, even if some people are better at fighting it than others, as LeBron might end up being one of the best of all time, if not the best of all time, at fighting Father Time. But at the end of the day, there will be a time when LeBron is no longer that great, and that's just to be expected. The guy's already 37 going on 38. He's probably going to play till he's like 45. I don't expect him to be the best player in the league when he's 45. But until that day, until it feels fully official, until it feels like, yeah, LeBron is definitely washed at this point, until there is an ample sample size and it's continued through the regular season to the playoffs, all of that, I'm not going to say the guy's washed until he's washed. It's kind of stupid to try and predict it, because he's going to prove you wrong. What's funny is the thing I mentioned earlier is that this cycle has existed with LeBron throughout his career, just for a different conversation. Not so much for being washed, but more so like, hey, maybe Kevin Durant or somebody else is actually the best player in the league. And that would stem from LeBron not really trying all that hard in the regular season. That's a thing that he's done for pretty much ever since he left the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he pretty much coasts the regular season and then playoff time comes around and he locks the fuck in and reminds you why he's maybe the greatest player of all time. And he kind of did that from his early Miami days to recently. Like 2020 is the most recent time where I think LeBron proved to be the best player in the league. And it doesn't seem like people pick up on this pattern when it's like, we have a fucking decade-long sample size. LeBron has been doing this my entire time as an NBA fan. You'd think people would pick up on this, but apparently it's too complicated for them. So it's just another version of the same cycle, and with LeBron not calling the guy washed until he's officially 100% that, because the guy is just a complete anomaly of an athlete. I know you want to say, hey, well, he's 37 years old, he can't go forever. That's true, but you could convince me LeBron's going to be one of the top 10 players in the league at like 43, because he's just different. He's simply built different. So that's LeBron. I almost said shout out to LeBron. Why would I shout out? He's like the most famous athlete in the world. Never mind. Anyways, come back to this video in like a month, or a few months, when it turns out that he's actually washed and I was overreacting to 6 games. But I'm very, very confident that that's not what's happening right now. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.